I'd like to add some more shapes to my flowchart, but before I do so, I really want to get the bands or the swim lanes as perfect as possible. So I'm just going to add the function text and finish off the swim lanes text. So I'll just click on this function text here, press F2 and add the text communications manager. I'll just add this function text, F2. And the final text is records. So I just want to check first of all that everything's sort of fitting as I want it to. And that's pretty much exactly how I want it. Records is nice and short. In fact, Secretary of Governance, I might make that shorter. So I'll just click on the swim lane or band and just reduce the height of this particular band. And that's probably enough there. Now Performance Analyst is a really busy band, so I'm going to click on this band and just increase the height of that. Now as I resize, I'm finding I'm jumping quite a bit, so I actually want to change my grid. I think these squares in my grid are too large. So I'm going to go to the View tab in the ribbon, and I'm going to choose the Show Dialog Box Launcher. And with regards to my grid, I'm going to set it to fixed actually, fixed in each one, and I might fix it to say 2 millimeters, which will give me a nice fine grid to work with. And OK. And that might make it easier to work with this very, very busy cross-functional flowchart, in some ways too busy. Now what we have at the top here is something called a phase, and I'd like to add more phases, or what they call separators. On your stencil you have a shape called separator, and I'm going to drag the separator onto my page and put it about here. I'm then going to click on the text phase, press F2 and add the text, and then click away. I'm then going to add another separator about here, and I'll add the text, and again click away, and just continue to add your separators in about the right place and add the text accordingly. Now for this final phase, I want to remove the text, so I'll just click, press F2, and I'll probably just put a space, which will effectively remove that text. Now what I want to do is add some shapes, and I particularly want to start with maybe the process shape. So I drag the process shape out of the stencil and put it in roughly the right place, which I want is about here. Now this is far bigger than I need, so I'm going to resize this shape to about that. So when I look at my size and position box, I've got roughly roughly 16.5 millimeters for the width and 9.9 for the height. Let's make it exactly 16 wide and exactly 10 high. And then I'm dealing in perfect numbers. And I'm just going to move it a little bit more so it's roughly centered. Oops, click on it. Roughly centered by just arrowing it across and down within that particular area. Now the other thing I notice when I'm looking at this diagram is the font is extremely small. In fact, I'd say it's about 6 points. So I'm going to go to the Home tab in my ribbon, and I'm going to change it to perhaps Arial and 6 points. And I might even type some text just to check. And that's about the size I need, looking at what I've got in front of me in terms of a printout. So what I'll do is then duplicate the shape because it's got the characteristics I'm after. In fact, it might be a little bit too short, so I'll just increase the height a little bit to say 11 millimeters. Alright, so Control D will duplicate the shape, and I'll put it about here. and then another one, and just continue to press Ctrl D until you get the duplicates roughly in the places that you need them to be. Having the finer grid makes it a lot easier to move things around. And basically get all your process shapes roughly in place. Use the arrow keys if necessary, because sometimes the mouse doesn't put the shape where I want it to go. So I'm going to use my arrow keys just to get it over and in the right place. It's probably a little bit boring watching me, but it's actually quite interesting sometimes to see how people approach these exercises. Watching somebody else always gives you ideas. And I'm doing my best to line things up as accurately as I can. I will have to resize some of these boxes, but at the moment I'm just working with the dimensions I've got. Alright, so that's most of my process shapes. Now I need to add some start-end shapes. So I'm just going to drag the start-end shape onto my diagram, onto my page, and put it about here. Again, this particular shape is too large, so I might change the width to say 16. And the height, I might just leave that at 10 for the moment. And I'll just use my arrow keys to move that shape and get it somewhere that I'm happy. And then continue to, well, actually I might add some text, so I'll just change the font to Arial and 6 points. And I'll add some text. Alright, so I'm happy with that particular shape. Now I'll Control D and put duplicates in various locations. And that's the last start-end shape that I need. So now I'll move on to my next shape. The next shape I need is a decision shape. So I'm going to drag the decision shape and put it again onto my page, roughly where I need it. Again, this is too large, so I'm going to change the width to say 16. And I might move these shapes over a little. So I'm just holding the Shift key, selecting these two shapes, moving them over, and then moving this shape roughly where I need it to be. And I'll make duplicates. Well, actually, again, sorry, change the font to Arial and change it to 6, just so my shapes are as consistent as possible. And Control D. And I put this shape over here. Alright. In fact, all of those shapes seem to be shorter and wider. These three here anyway. So I'm just going to click on this shape, hold the Shift, and click on the other two I want to pick up. These three shapes, I'm going to make them wider, perhaps 18. But I'll change the height to say 10. And that's more what I'm after. And that way they're consistently sized. This one I might add some text to. Yep, I'm happy with that. Now what I need to do is start adding some connector lines. So first of all, I'm going to go up to my Home tab in the ribbon and click my connector button. And I'm going to start with this shape and connect it to this shape via the connection points. Don't worry if the line's not straight. We'll have to move the shapes to get things to line up properly, which at this moment we're just guesstimating. So I'm going to go from here to here and just create as many connectors as I can. Some of them I might leave out where they're a little tricky. For instance, this one here is a little tricky. It has two lines going from this particular process shape to this decisions shape. So I'm going to leave that because I need to show you how to tackle that situation. So I'm just going for the straightforward shapes. And at this point I'm also noticing any shapes I'm missing. And I'll come back to those as well. Okay, I'm just going to put my pointer tool back on because I notice I'm missing a start-end shape. So I'm just going to click on this start-end shape, press Ctrl D and put the start-end shape over here. Then I can create, using my connector tool, a connection line between this shape here and this one up here. And those are the lines I want to work with to begin with. So I'll put my pointer tool back on. To get the lines to straighten up, it's really making sure that things are in alignment. So what I've got here is a crooked line going between these two shapes here. I'll try and move this shape over, and that's just rectified that problem. All I did was click on the shape and press the left arrow once, and that pushed that shape to the left, which caused that line to straighten out. I'm going to click on this shape and just press the left arrow again and straighten that shape out as well. This one's actually taller than normal, so I'm just going to resize it so that it's taller. And I might press F2 and add the text. And that actually looks good. I could resize it if necessary. I've got a little bit more space to play with. Now let's look at this line here. This line needs straightening up as well. I could actually just drag this. Ooh, no, I'm going to click on this shape and move this just to the right. And that's rectified that problem. So just try using your arrow keys initially just to move the shapes to the left or the right and try to get them to line up properly. I'm happy with this line here, and I'm happy with this line here. This shape could move down just a smidgen, so I'm just going to arrow it down a couple of times. And this one needs to be resized as well, because it's got an awful lot of text in it. But I won't worry about typing all the text, because that's pretty straightforward. I'm looking at any other lines, and I'm thinking, okay, this here needs to be straightened as well, so I'm just going to click on this start-end shape and move it up and to the right. And that looks better. This shape here, probably move it to the left, and that's rectified that problem there. And the same with these guys. Just move this one down. Sometimes you want to hold the shift key and hit the down arrow so that when you move it up or down, it goes in smaller increments. And that's how I got that solved. If I move this one down, it straightens up, but if I want to move in little steps, The shift up arrow and the shift down arrow are a cool little trick to try and get things to move just in little wee steps. And so I'll move this down, again just with the arrow keys. The arrow keys are much better than the mouse. This one here, for example, I'm just going to move this shape up a little until the line straightens, and just continue to straighten your lines. Now what I'd like you to do is go through and add the text to your shapes and just make sure that the text fits and everything's nice, and then I'll come back.